So when you take bacteria, bacteria are purely prokaryotic organisms, and they cannot be categorized under any other organisms like the plant kingdom or the animal kingdom. So bacteria being very primitive organisms, submicroscopic and devoid of a true nucleus, are categorized as a different kingdom in the organisms. Okay, so likewise we are having various other category of organisms which cannot be classified under plant kingdom or in animal kingdom. So we are going to look into such microorganisms. One of the category is algae. Now when you take algae, they look like plants. If you observe the pictures which I am showing on the slide, they somewhat look like plants, but they are not plants. And either they are not animals. So what are they actually? We cannot conclude to an answer like if asked, what are algae? Algae either are plants or animals or bacteria. We cannot answer such question. Okay, so what the botanists had done is they had kept the algae into a different kingdom. So the kingdom itself is algae. That's all. So it's not a plant, even though looks like, not even animal. Now when you take the algae, it's a plural word obviously, and alga is the singular word. Okay. Now when you take algae, first when you take any microorganism, you have to discriminate them whether they are unicellular or multicellular. First point. Second point, whether they are prokaryote or eukaryote. This is how any organism can be categorized. But algae are very special group of microorganisms which exist in unicellular form and even in multicellular form. So if you take algae, few algae exist as a single cell, and few algae will exist in the form of colonies. So here the word colonies stands for group of algae living together and dependent on each other. Get the word colonies in a better way, because this word repeatedly comes across even in fungi, even in viruses, even in bacterial economic importance also we'll read about this word colonies. Singular colony. So see, colony, it's a usual term what we use when we are having a group of houses in an area. We call it as colony, isn't it? In general,
plural and singular means algae is plural. How means they are also single.
Okay. Yeah, I'll explain. Plural means when you are referring to a group of alga. When you're referring to a group of alga, it's called algae. Okay. So here E comes. So when you are referring to group of alga, they are called algae. When you are referring to a single alga, single microorganism, then it is called alga. Like here we are saying unicellular, isn't it? Some alga will exist in the form of unicellular, means they're single-celled microorganism. To that we can refer as alga, single organism. Of a group of organisms we are referring, then we go for algae. So that's a singular word and plural word for noun. Because alga is a noun, isn't it? So that's alga is a singular noun and algae is a plural noun. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now what we are talking is, we are talking about the colonies. So when group of algae will come together and live together and dependent on each other. For example, here I am showing this pic. So when we take alga like volvox, volvox is an example of alga. Okay. Now when you take this volvox, it lives in the form of colony. The volvox will not live individually. As if here you can see an alga name I have given. This is an individual alga. So I just circled that alga. Okay. But this Volvox alga will live in colonies. Colony means it live in groups. Now when an organism is living in group, each one of them will depend on each other. So just showing that here. Okay. So these are different organisms living as colony, which we call the Volvox algae. Now, if you remember the difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms differences, I used a word division of labor while explaining the cell structure and fundamentals. If you remember, this labor I explained as workforce. The workforce will be divided between different cells in multicellular organisms only. You will find division of labor only in multicellular organisms. You won't find this distribution of workforce within a single cell. That I gave an example with amoeba. See, in amoeba, all the life processes like locomotion, respiration, even ingestion, digestion and excretion also will be carried out in a single cell, like unicellular. But in multicellular organism, the work will be distributed between the cells. So here, why I'm repeating the same concept here? Because the colonies form of algae are multicellular. This is the basic point you have to get over here. So algae exist in unicellular form and even multicellular form also. That is possible only with this microorganism. No other microorganism, of course fungi is there, but other than these algae and fungi, no other microorganism can exist in both unicellular form and in multicellular form. That's the specification over algae here. When you take the morphology, the structure. Then here Volvox like colonies, if you find, then such colonies we call as multicellular. So basically there are examples in algae which can be unicellular algae and multicellular algae. Whenever you find multicellular algae, definitely go for colonies option. So wherever algae lives in the form of colonies, they are multicellular. Okay. So this is about simple structural aspect of algae. Here, one example of algae I gave, Volvox. Remember the nouns, remember the names of the different microorganisms I will use from now onwards. In the last session of microorganisms, I gave a list of kind of bacterial names I gave. Vibrio cholerae, which causes cholera. You remembered I showed 2 slides, different shapes of bacteria and the bacterial names. Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, like that. Did you remember all those? So likewise, we'll see different terminology in algae and fungi also. Okay. Yes, Ronak. Difference between colonies and multicellular. Okay. We'll go in this way. See, multicellular we'll find in organisms. Okay. Best example, now we can take a human body. Human body is an multicellular organism. Now when you take human body, various processes will be carried out by different cells and different organs, isn't it? Like the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the excretory system, the reproductive system. Likewise, different processes of this organism are carried out by various cells. And all these cells are interconnected, isn't it? A cell in circulatory system like RBC cannot work individually. It flows throughout the body, isn't it? Likewise, even the purified part of blood in kidneys, in excretory system, it will have interlinkage to all the other systems. So this kind of different cells and systems organized and dependent on each other. They are depending on each other. So such organisms we call multicellular organisms. Now, when you come to colony, many unicellular organisms or multicellular organisms will come together and with form a kind of structure called colony. So colony is related to different organisms coming together. Get the point there. That's the difference. Various organisms are coming together and they are forming colony and they act in the multicellular way. But multicellular organisms are the one in which single body of that organism will have different functions depending on each other. It's not coming together. They're depending on each other. Okay, that's the difference between colony and multicellular nature. Clear, Ronak? Still any doubt?
But algae are not multicellular. Means they are not organisms. Like
which one? Human body is a multicellular organism. Okay, it's as a single organism. It's not a colony of organisms, isn't it? Human is a single organism in which you are having various life processes which depend on each other. But here colonies are nothing but different organisms are coming together and living together. It's not like purely dependence, but coming together forms colony, which we will not talk in case of multicellular organism. Clear?
Yes.
Still you have any doubt? Feel free to ask. Like, this difference is very important one and you have to know the difference at the basic level. That's why I'm insisting. Still you have any doubt? Any other students, do you have any doubt what Ronak raised? Difference between colony and multicellular?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, multicellular means many cells come together, ma'am, they form only one body. Yes.
We are talking about only an organism. That's why I took an example, human body. Here various cells. See, these are various cells. They're coming together and they're depending each other and going for division of labor. Isn't it? But when you take colonies, here the best example colony, that's why I gave Volvox. I'll show the slide individually. So there what happens, all the dotted ones, I'll just change the color so that you will get a view. Yeah, the dotted ones, see, I'm putting in orange. All those are organisms. Okay, they together came as a colony. This is colony. So colony is something where numerous organisms will come and live together and depend each other. So dependency is same, but coming together is different. In multicellular, you won't have different organs. See, in human body, you won't have different organisms. You'll have different organs. Organism is different. It's a living entity, isn't it? So human body, whole living entity in which different organs or organ systems will function together. They'll depend on each other. There's a difference between multicellular and colony. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, when you take alga, the first foremost point is about the structure. When you take alga, although they resemble plants more relatively, but in characteristic features also they resemble plants. But in some points they differ from plants. What are the similarities and what are the differences? Why the alga group is separated from plant kingdom? That we'll see now. Now when you take the alga structure, usually it may be unicellular or multicellular, but it's definitely eukaryote. Means it will have a true nucleus with nuclear membrane. First point. Then coming to the second point of alga doesn't carry any kind of roots or stem system or leaves, nothing of that sort. So these are all very common to a plant body. So even though it looks like plant body, but it is not a plant because it doesn't possess all these basic plant structure. But some characters are there which makes them similar to the plant, which is nothing but the nutrition. Now when I say they are similar to plant in nutrition, definitely you can go for the algae or autotrophs. Most of the algae are autotrophs. Okay. So how the algae are autotrophs, how they will carry the process, that we'll see in nutrition process. Now here, when you take the morphology, this is all about morphology. They will have unicellular or multicellular structure. They'll have a true nucleus. That's why they are eukaryotes. And their body doesn't possess roots or stem or leaf system. But this is what the algal bloom we call. Can you see the whole greenish water on the surface? It's only on the surface. So this whole thing is nothing but algal bloom. Okay, so a colony of algae. That's what here. Most of the algal organisms, they come together. They float on the surface of water. So their habitat is, they may live in fresh water, they may live in brackish water, or they may live in salt water also. So these are the one, if you see, most of them, even in the previous slide, are green in color. Can you observe that, students? Did you observe that most of them are in green color, isn't it? So what does that mean? They might be possessing the green pigment, which is nothing but the chlorophyll, isn't it? So when chlorophyll is present, you will be definitely having chloroplast, different plastids, and it carries out photosynthesis using sunlight. This is how they look similar to that of plant. Okay. Yes, Kavya, chlorophyll and photosynthesis. Ronak, chloroplast, don't get into chloroplast, because chloroplast is an organelle which will be having different changes like chromoplast, leucoplast. That interchange is there related to plastids. All those will not be observed in all algae. But chlorophyll pigment you can observe, because these are just microorganisms, not like plants having various parts possessing different cell organelles. These are just microorganisms. So they'll have pigments, like as of Kavya said, pigment like chlorophyll, or they may have pigments in different colors. I'll show the different colors and different patterns also. Okay. So here nutrition is similar to plants.